What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Studying Cinema with Cozy. I'm your host, Jamal Hollywood. I know this review is a little bit overdue. I had some technical difficulties, recording this review over the past couple of weeks. I actually made two separate reviews for this movie. I saw it two separate times. I really wanted to get my full extensive critique on it. But here we are. We're here to talk about the movie Sinners, Ryan Coogler's newest film, you know, Michael B. Jordan's newest film. It's something to behold. I tell you, it is something to behold. I feel like this movie is it's honestly one of my favorite movies of all time. I feel like it's one of the best movies that I've seen ever, from top to bottom, beginning to end. It pulls you in and it keeps you there. For those that aren't too familiar, we finna get into the trailer so y'all can get refreshed on what the movie entails, you feel me? We're gonna get into it. And it's crazy because when I first saw this trailer way back when, you feel me, compared to when I first seen the movie, it's crazy the fact that this trailer really doesn't even tell you half or even a fraction of what you're about to see in the film. This film is way beyond what your mind is gonna expect walking into it if you haven't seen it. A lot of people just go into it and think, okay, it's just gonna be a vampire flick. We see that it's starring black people, it's in a country setting. You think that certain stereotypes may play a part in the film, and to an extent that is true, but like the way that all of these different storylines interweave with each other and all these different characters bounce off of each other, it's not gonna be what you expect. I'm telling you, it's done in a way that's so captivating and it's so true to who we are as a people, as black people. It's true to us and our culture, and it's true to our history. It really tells a story that although it's fictional, it's real and it's reflective upon what our ancestors lived through. For sure, for sure.
I've been all over this world. I seen men die in ways I ain't even know was possible. Love you, brother. Be careful.
And this movie, if you ain't pick up while watching the film or watching the trailer, this movie has a lot of symbolism. We see the Smokestack twins, they are dressed in opposite colors. Smoke is dressed in blue. Well, not entirely in blue, but his color, his theme is blue. Stack is red. He has the red hat. Smoke has the blue hat. Smoke is driving the blue car. Stack is driving the red car at one point. So it's like, okay, we see how these two characters are kind of conveyed in this film. One is kind of treading to the darker side, and one is kind of gonna go tread towards the heroic side, just based off of colors. Not to say that Stack is evil in the movie or Smoke is more good than Stack, because they're equal. But it's just the way that these two characters go in their direction in the movie. The colors that they represent in the film tell their story beyond what the viewer could comprehend just by seeing it offhand. Because I know a lot of people probably didn't even pick up on the fact that one was wearing blue and one was wearing red for specific reasons beyond just them being twins and representing different colors or different sides of the spectrum. It's a lot of layers to this film that gets unveiled. The more you talk about it, the more you think about it and reflect on it. And it's one of my favorite parts about films like this. It makes you think beyond just a surface level.
I will. With all the things that I've seen, I ain't ever seen no demons, no ghosts, no magic. Till now. Now get back inside. Let me in, man.
See, this film is it's crazy because this trailer, like I said, it really doesn't even show you or tell you a fraction of what you're about to get into. You feel me? People see this and just think, okay, it's just a horror flick. Man, there's a lot of knowledge that goes into this film that the audience can learn from. It's a lot of history that's being told that the audience can expound upon and really dig into. A lot of different topics that get discussed that's, real stuff that happened in real life, that people could go and look into and really find out more about. I really appreciate the knowledge and the studies that Ryan Coogler put into his life just to make this film in general because you know, as someone who has, studied Black history, spirituality, religion, history throughout generations, it's very refreshing to see a film that encapsulates all of those things in a way that represents the culture respectively, and it doesn't tarnish or showcase trauma to get the message across. It's a film that celebrates us in a way that also tells our story and also allows people to think beyond the box that they're constructed to think in on an average day-to-day basis.
Some weird shit going on out here. You keep dancing with the devil. One day he's gonna follow you home.
Real dope trailer that showcases what turned out to be a real dope movie. There's a lot of memorable scenes and a lot of memorable moments in this film that I'm gonna forever remember and appreciate. The scene where we see Sammy playing the guitar in the middle of the juke joint, channeling the ancestors from the past and the future. It's crazy. I never seen nothing like that in the film, and I really do appreciate the cinematography and the direction that went into it, the whole, thought process that went into making that scene what it was without over exaggerating things or coming off as quote unquote corny because some people may look at it and be like, oh, that's champ or that's corny or whatever, but nah, Ryan Coogler really did it. He did it in a way that you know like I said, it respects the culture and it respects us as a people. It doesn't it doesn't flaunt any negative traits of our culture, for real. It only celebrates the positive and who we are and where we've come from. The story that is told in the movie within itself is something that's captivating. There's a lot of different side stories that interweave within it. We have Stack and Mary's relationship, we have Andy and Smoke's relationship, we have Sammy and his relationship with his father in the church, his relationship with Perlene at one point, his relationship with music. We have Delta Slim and his whole storyline. We have Grace and Bo and their family and how they interweave with the whole Smokestack twin storyline and everything. It's a lot of different stories that are being told, but it's done in a way that it's not, to me, it doesn't feel like it's all over the place. It's done in a way that's paced well. I feel like, especially when the twins separate and you kind of see the vibe of both of them on an individual basis, interacting with different people, it it is done in a way that showcases all the characters, side characters, I should say, highlights their traits and whatever, and it lets you know what type of people that you're gonna get into for the rest of the movie. It's done in a way that's paced well, like I said, and by the time you get to the whole juke joint scene, everything is set up. The stage is set for the type of characters we're dealing with. You know, the type of story we're about to get into, and from that point, it's up from that point. I feel like I feel like personally that this film touches on a lot of layers that it's for all people, A lot of people don't really know about the extensive knowledge that may have gone into certain elements of this film as far as the spiritual side or the music side. But, that's okay. I feel like on the surface level, this movie does have things that you could take away from it and learn from. And it also has things that you could dive deeper into to learn about, the hidden layers and the messages and the metaphors that Ryan Coogler put in this film. For those that already come into this film knowing certain things, like I said, it's refreshing to see it in a film that's done in this capacity, in this way that, showcases our culture in a positive light. We've seen movies like Eve's Bayou, come out in the past that, also do the same, but Eve's Bayou, it has trauma interwoven in it. And a lot of people aren't just going to sit down and watch Eve's Bayou as a comfort film or watch it as a film to just enjoy. It's more so a film that you know, I don't even see people really just cut it on and watch it. You feel me? Same thing with Color Purple. Although Color Purple is about a certain era and it's showcasing how, how Black Americans lived during that era, sharecropping era. It's like no one was gonna sit down and watch it in a manner where they just sitting and enjoying it. You feel me? Unless it's on some teachable moment shit. With this movie, Sinners, you get everything in one. You get an enjoyable film that teaches you about history, even though it's a fictional film. And you also get, cultural elements. You get music, you get spiritual, you get, a little bit of religion, you get the social life of different classes, you get the economics of different classes, you get the interactions between black people and different races. You even get the, representation of the Native Americans during that time and how they even try to come in there and warn, the white folks that took in the vampire in the beginning. Try to tell them folk in the beginning, like, yo, we got this man that we hunting, but he's not what he seems. You feel me? As soon as she distrusted him and turned her back, it was raps, you know. And it was a little bit of foreshadowing. It's a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of symbolism. Like I said in this film, we see the vultures above the house when the Native Americans pull up. Three vultures representing the three vampires that's soon to become and walk over to the juke joint. We get over to the juke joint, and basically Remick is a representation of a lot of things. A lot of things. He's a representation of the devil a little bit. He's a representation of a little bit of everything, just everything that has to do with negativity and siphoning energy from those that have positive aspects to them. Sammy had the gift, a God-given gift to sing and orchestrate music. He was nice on that guitar, and he could sing. You feel me? That was his gift. That was his gift. So with that being said, Remy came into the picture, hearing his voice and wanting to use his voice and his talent to channel his ancestors and basically to just siphon Sammy's energy to channel um, a bigger and stronger you know energy for the vampire population, for the devil, basically, for the evil forces. It's a lot that goes into it. A lot of people can take it a lot of different ways. People can look at it like, okay, the music industry today has artists sell out and has they have them do different things, do different rituals and stuff, and then they become you know a product of you know the industry. Some people look at it like, okay, white supremacy. They come in, boom, and try to steal everything from black people, from black culture, from indigenous people, and use it for their own good. Use it for their own good, whether it's the spiritual, whether it's the music, whether it's just the education, the knowledge, the engineering. They siphon in energy, and then you know on a day-to-day basis we deal with different people on this scale, people that come into your life and try to take away your energy in different ways, whether it's friends, family, co-workers. So it's a lot of different ways that people could look at this film. Like I said, it's something there for people that don't really dive into the deeper knowledge of things, and it's also set up for people that look at things from a broader standpoint. Like I said, there's a lot of different ways to look at this film. and there's a lot of different things that you could take away from it. But overall, there is a clear theme and a clear, motive behind the purpose of this film. And, you know, when you watch it, you get it, when you watch it, you get it. Some people may go into this movie and come out and be like, I don't really understand what it was about. I've seen that tape a couple of times and I don't understand it because I feel like regardless of, if you've seen the movie yet or not and you're watching this review, everything that I'm saying right now, although it may sound complex to some, it's not when you watch the film. You're going to watch it and you're going to understand what's going on. You're going to hopefully see all the symbolism within it. You hopefully see all the symbolism within it. Also, I want to touch on a few other things within this movie. Um, Annie. I feel like Annie is one of the best representations of a black character that I've seen in a movie ever. The way that she was knowledgeable, strong, and just assertive and being, certain about certain things. She had real discernment and she didn't second guess herself when it came to what they were dealing with. And I like how it wasn't, you know, I like how her character wasn't used in a way to pander or used in a way to like, anything that was exploitive. It was used in a way that was, she's a leader. It was really her and Smoke that was leading the way. She was the brains and he was the bronze. He was leading the way physically. So I really like the representation they had with Annie's character. All of the characters in the movie represent different archetypes and different things. They have the seven deadly sins represented in this movie. They have, different archetypes of black people represented in this movie. They just have different archetypes of people in general. Annie, overall, I feel like she's one of my favorite characters in the movie. I really like her and Smoke's relationship. And I really like the balance that this movie has with all of its characters. We see Smoke and Stack, obviously, they're the two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of like their relationship offhand. Smoke, he's in a lot calmer. His relationship is a lot calmer. It's a lot more, you know, nurturing and just, caring. Annie is a lot more caring and nurturing than Mary is off rip, just based off of how their characters moves. Annie's character is a lot more intentional about what she does. She's a lot she paces herself at a slower pace than Mary, and it's like, she like I said, she's a lot more intentional. Her and Smoke move at a certain pace that's right for them. She's a protector, she's a healer, she's a nurturer. Mary comes in a little bit chaotic, and Mary is white passing. Her grandma was half white, half black. So off rip, when she comes in and just calls Sammy boy, off rip, it's kind of like there's little things that's being shown about her character that shows that she kind of views herself a little bit differently, but she also wants to be a part of the black crowd. She says to Stack that, excuse me, she says to Stack that she never wanted to be white. She wanted it to be with him. But Stack is like, basically in this world, in this day and age, we can't even have that happen. You feel me? Like, basically I'm black, you white, passing. And it's like, you know, basically, and with the way that Stack was like, with the way that I live, I would just wanted you to be protected. I couldn't have you be with me and then have your life at risk, with everything that's going on. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you gotta respect that. But you could see that both of them wanted to be with each other, but their relationship is a lot more chaotic. And the color red represents a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. It represents, some people look at it and see that it represents love, lust, robust sexuality, and that's what their relationship entails. We see a lot of like risque things happen between them, low key. you know Mary is the one that comes in and she's a bit more naive than the rest of the characters. Like I said, she's white passing, so she kind of comes off like she could be the medium between the white vampires and the folk and the juke joint. And she talking to Stack like, let me go out there and talk to them and see if I could really, see if they're good people. And Stack is like, you sure? Basically, Aunt Mary is like, let me go do that. And Mary go ahead and do that, and then end up in the end getting her ass bit. And then she come back up in the juke joint, you know. Now she come back in the juke joint as an undercover vampire, Nobody knows that they got somebody that's basically infiltrating their territory right under their nose, Mary go ahead and takes that to the back room, and they go ahead and do what they do. And it's like that lust and that, temptation behind their relationship and everything that came with it just led to Stack end up getting bit. It led to Stack end up getting bit. So boom. Stack is the one that ends up turning in the end. And it's almost like in a way like we can't let the intruder in, by any means, you cannot let the intruder in by any means. Some people, not all people are good people. Some people may come off and present themselves as good people. Nah, not all people good people. Mary, she really thought that she could be a part of the culture and like, you know, use her whiteness to her advantage at the same time. And that's the one thing that Smoke was kind of like wary about when he saw her. Like, you know, this is a juke joint full of black people. If the wrong thing happened, word get around and it's over. You feel me? Like, it's little things like that people don't be taking into consideration. Like, when I say people, I mean like people that's look like that's in Mary's shoes. You feel me? And it's just like her being naive enough to think that she could go and, talk down those weird people that was already weird coming off rip. Because everybody else was just like, I don't know about these folk. But it's that money at the same time. They was like, man, we need the money because everybody that's down here, they living off the plantation money. And that's just another thing that's has to do with the times. Like that sharecropping era is no joke. Like them folk really had to get it how they lived. You feel me? Like even though slavery was over, they were still doing that work. And it's unfortunate how life was, but it's also real. Like, and like they were saying in the movie, like for them to feel at home, you just gotta, let them enjoy the night, basically. Like let them use this money here and let them, you know, feel like this is their community because at the end of the day, everybody need a community. And that's the thing about it. It's almost like, Smoke and Stack, they wasn't even gonna be able to sustain the juke joint for too long with that going on. But it's like, dang, you're here for a good time or a long time. At the end of the day, they was only there for a good time. They only had one night, grand opening, grand closing, for real. There's a lot of different layers and metaphors in this film. We got the KKK giving off the mill to the Smokestack twins. The Smokestack twins, they was like, everything is green as long as the Klan don't come around these quarters. And then unbeknownst to them, they was talking to the leader of the Klan, and it's like, or not, I don't know if he was the leader, but he was in the higher rankings of the Klan in that district, basically. And he was like, nah, the Klan don't exist no more. Just for the vampire to come through at night and tell him, like, yo, basically, like, they was already planning on killing you. Because he could see the thoughts and, like, he know the memories of everybody he bit. So when he bit that couple in the cabin, he already seen that they was a part of the Klan. So he already knew what was up. He already knew what was up. And I just feel like, damn, it's like they can't even escape nothing. They had to deal with the vampires at night, deal with the Klan in the morning. And the Klan didn't come through in the hoods and stuff in the morning. They just came through in their regular daily clothes. And I'm like, okay, some people may look at it just like that, but it's also, I feel like, a little bit of a metaphor for how, like, just because they said the Klan don't exist no more, obviously the Klan did still exist. And when the Klan pulled back up, they didn't pull up in their regular clothes like, the Smokestack twins probably would have expected them to. So it's almost like, during the day, you don't know who part of the Klan, but they still out there. You still got to worry about them. And then at night, you really got to worry about them when they pull up with the hoods on. It's just that in this movie, we're dealing with the vampires that siphoning the energy and, you know, killing off our people. instead of the clan represented. You feel me? So, like I said, it's a lot of different things that you could take away from this film. I really do truly appreciate this film. It's one of my favorite movies ever. I feel like this is Ryan Coogler's best piece of work, and I'm glad that he's able to retain the rights to it after 25 years. Like this movie right here is the one. This one is the one. It's gonna be talked about for years. I feel like it's really gonna be talked about for years, and I really do appreciate it, man. For real. I really do. Overall, I'm giving this movie a 10 out of 10. Giving this movie a 10 out of 10. If I could give it a 12 out of 10, I would. I'm telling you. If we got sequels or prequels to it, I wouldn't complain. But I also wouldn't complain or be mad if this was just one piece of work on its own. Because with it just being one piece of work, man, it's one of those films that where you just go back and revisit, man. You just go back and watch again. You pick up on things that you might have missed. Like there's a lot of things that I feel like it's gonna get continue to get broken down. Like when Sammy pulled up in the beginning and at the end to the church, there was that man in the white suit and with the white horse, and it's hmm, that's what happens when people see the apocalypse. Well, like ain't that one of the horses that you see during the apocalypse, the white horse with the I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe it was some other symbolism that was going on with the white horse. I know the white horse represent death though overall. So it's like in the movie there was kind of foreshadowing the death that was to come in the movie, but with the white horse showing up at the end of the film after everything happened, it kind of makes you think like what did the white horse represent at that point, you know? I do kind of not struggle, go back and forth with, the idea of Sammy's soul being sold, not sold, but just tampered with a little bit because of how everything went. Sammy did choose the he chose himself over, his father's path for him, or basically the righteous or the church path, or basically, steering away from the sin that came from the music. You know, in other words, Sammy kind of just embraced it and just used the knowledge that he had to kind of navigate through the world in my eyes, because the very very last scene in the movie, the second post credit scene, we see Sammy in the church singing "This Little Light of Mine," but he's also singing it in a way that's, you know, a little bit non-traditional. He has that little blues effect to it. And, some people may look at it and be like, oh, did he go back to the church after? Nah, because he didn't have them scratches on his face in that scene. So what I look at that scene as, you know, I look at it as Sammy still had the soul. Like he knew what home was in his grand scheme. You know, when he was reciting the scripture, when the vampire was baptizing him under the moon, and the vampire started, preaching the word with him. Sammy at that moment he still relied on what he knew instinctively. He knew the word. That's one thing he did know. So like I feel like he always was gonna have that in him, and he was always gonna use that aspect of him throughout his life. He always kind of kept he. I feel like it was just showing that there was a balance between what he wanted and what people wanted for him, kind of. Also, I do feel like the guitar is what saved him, kind of, because like he had to fight evil with evil. He didn't know that that guitar was the Smokestack Twins' father's guitar, and they already said that their father was an evil man. And you know, the vampire started reciting the scripture back to him, and he realized that the scripture wasn't gonna work in terms of like fighting off that spirit in that time. You know, there's a lot you could take away from that scene because the vampire is baptizing him under the moon, reciting the scripture with him. Sammy takes the guitar, hits him over the head with it, and then that's the one thing that really like startles him and the rest of the vampires. All while Remick is saying that he wants his, his stories, his soul and everything. It's very telling. That's why I'm saying it's a lot that you could take away from this film, man. It's a lot you could take away from this film, and then I'm gonna forever appreciate it, man. I could talk about this film forever. I'm not gonna lie. I could talk about this film forever. And I feel like there's so many things I didn't even really dive deep into. But if I dove deep into every little aspect that I saw, it would be like 2 hours, 3 hours long. I'm not gonna lie, because Ryan Coogler really did his thing. He really did. He really did do his thing. And hopefully we get to see more films like this from him in the future too, like more um, you know, newer uh IPs that just are just refreshing, whether it's horror, just thriller, drama, romance, whatever the case is. We just need new black shit in general, like new black stories, new black characters, a lance, a slate for new black actors to step up to, like old boy that played Sammy. I'm hoping that he get more roles after this, for real, for real. For real, for real. Everybody really did their thing in this one. And hopefully we get to see more of them in more projects, and hopefully we get to see more films that come of this stature, because this is setting the tone for what the best movie is for 2025. I'm not gonna lie. This is the best film of 2025. And as of right now, there shouldn't be any other movie in discussion for the best movie of the year. Sinners is the top film, top to bottom. I know I haven't seen everything, and I probably won't see everything, but based off of my personal judgment, Sinners it's the best film of the year so far, and it's probably gonna go down as the best film of the year. Ryan Coogler, shout out to you, man. You done you done got the community back inspired. You got them back inspired. You reigniting some conversations that some people should have been having, you know, and I appreciate it. With that being said, I appreciate y'all for tuning in on this vid. Not gonna lie, we're gonna keep it pushing, man. Check me out on Twitch, Jamal Hollywood, JAMAAL Hollywood. We're gonna be going live on there almost every day. We'll be doing live reviews, live reactions, all that. So that's really why I've been having the technical difficulties, because I recorded my review on Twitch. The recording, just the quality wasn't up to par to put out. So this time around, got everything right, copacetic. So in the future, you can see the live reviews on Twitch. But in the meantime, run this video up. I'm gonna drop my magazine, or re-drop my magazine Dreams review, because the quality on that was poor as well. So I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna chat up with y'all later, man.